Okay, welcome back everybody to the Cranbourne East Secondary Podcast. As always, you're joined by me, Mr. Yung,
Hey, it's Mr. L.
and a recurring guest.
First time
Hi
ever.
everyone.
Hey, basically for today's episode, we have Miss Candy back, or Mrs. Candy back, because of a special reason. Do you care to share?
So I'm moving schools. I'm leaving
Yeah.
Cranbourne East.
I'm sure everyone's actually going to miss you a lot. I've heard that there's been quite a lot of positive interaction between you and students. So yeah, I can tell that you're going to be very missed.
Oh, I'm gonna miss everyone. Like everyone here, like staff and students are so sweet and so lovely. So yeah, it's going to be tough leaving.
Definitely. And I believe you're going to a primary school, aren't you, Miss Candy?
Yes, so I'm leaving. So this year I taught year 7 to year 10, and now I'm going to grade 1, 2.
Whoa, big difference.
They're like 6 years old, 6, 7 years old. They're so tiny.
Yep. All right. Yeah.
Have you met people? Oh, sorry.
Yep. All good. Mr. Yung, you first.
Okay, I was going to ask if you've met any of the people you're going to work with soon.
Yeah, so I've had a couple of days. Well, I went in one day, I think last week or week before. So I met a few people then. They've all been really friendly and helpful, and like everyone's like, if you need anything, here's my number. And I got to see some of the kids that were on site. I've never felt so tall.
Yeah.
Even like the grade 5, 6s, I'm like, I'm still taller than them.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I got to meet some of my students as well because they have Google Meets. So I joined one of the Google Meets, and they're just so little. Their voices are still very high.
Yeah.
I had one student ask me, because they took turns asking lots of different questions. And one was like, back in your day, what was primary school like?
That's a very well thought out question for grade 2.
I was just like, I'm not that old. It was the same.
Yeah, I think one of the funny things I've seen is that because my wife, who's a primary school teacher, she teaches next to me sometimes. And I've seen a meme about this as well, where you see a high school teacher's online teaching and it's just the teacher's face. Every other camera is all off. There's no microphones on. Nobody wants to talk. And the teacher's like, hello, anyone there? And then you look at a primary school one and the kids are like, oh my God. I'm like, have you seen my lollies, miss? Oh my God, my lollies are so good. And it's like, it's completely different. And then I remember my wife, she's like, all right, you need to mute yourselves first. Wait, no, mute yourselves, sit down. It's like, it's so different, you know? Yeah. So you can look forward to that.
Oh yeah. I already had one student. She's like, oh, your last name's Candy. I have Candy like shaped textures. Yeah, I'll show you each one. We're showing them individually. And the other teacher had to be like, maybe not now. Like
exactly. It's gonna be such a huge jump.
Yeah. Very different.
Yeah. Oh, it sounds really exciting actually. Kind of like a jumping off topic for a little bit, but basically with primary schools, back to primary school, I think it's been quite a while since we've been in primary school. Like, sorry for Mr. L. It's been a bit longer, maybe.
You mean haven't been to primary school as a student, been in primary school, or you've gone to visit a primary school?
As a student.
Okay, so it's been ages. It's been ages.
Yes. I wonder if there's anything different from then till now.
I know from my placements, it's more just like the teaching practices. Like one of the schools that I went to does like investigations in the morning. So basically the kids would see it as free time, but there's a lot of like play learning happening in the lower year levels. So I know I never had that.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I have to, because that's the thing is like Miss Candy said, she's seen it recently more as a student teacher when she was on placement. But for myself, unless I actually go and observe a class, it's going to be very hard. I guess the only chance that I did get to observe a class was probably 2 years ago. One of our, was it 2 years ago? Yeah, it would have been 2 years ago. One of our year 10s was doing work experience as at a primary school. And so during year 10 work experience, sometimes the teacher comes to visit. So it was one of the primary schools near our school. It wasn't the one next door to our school. I forgot which one it was. But I got to go into the classroom and everything looked so small. Like I don't remember the tables and the chairs being as small as they were. And so I go in and then the teacher was like, oh, this here is Mr. L. He's a high school teacher. And just by something like that, all the kids were like, whoa, high school. And I was like, these kids love me already. So it's so good. Yes, I went to, it's, I don't know, the practice didn't seem that different, but it was pretty cool to go back and observe a bit. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I do wish like I could actually see what it's like to be like in primary school now. That would be pretty interesting.
Yeah, jump online.
Yeah. Okay, so basically for the theme of today, I was thinking about how Miss Candy, you are leaving us soon. So I would like to know a little bit about what some of your fondest memories are about being at CESC.
It is a big question. I think I don't have one that really stands out, but I think I always really love our harmony days. I think we are so lucky to have such a diverse school and to have so many people who actually get involved in it. So I think first 2 years that I was teaching here, I got up and did a staff dance. And like, even though it's scary and it wasn't my culture, but I was, celebrating other cultures, it's still just so much fun to get up and celebrate in that way. So I think that's one thing I'm really going to miss. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's always just like the banter that you can have in class with your students. I think that's always like my highlights. There are different students that I remember and yeah, I think things like that.
Yeah, you probably can't banter as much with grade 1s and grade 2s now, can you, Miss Candy?
No. It's going to be very basic.
Yeah. I think for myself, if I was to leave, let's say, and someone asked me the same question, what's my fondest memories of CSC? I probably would have to say market days, but in particular, running of market days. Like I remember every year I'm in P2S, I dread running market day because there's just so much stress and so much work in the moment. The adrenaline's crazy. You're running around, you're doing so many things. But then that moment afterwards, we just get to sit down for the first time and the day's done and it was successful. It's like the best feeling ever, especially with the rest of the teachers who also did it with you. We just look at each other. We're like, yeah, we did that. We just did that. It's such an amazing feeling. It's a bit different to enjoying it by yourself. Like I've had years where I'm not teaching PT or something. Yeah, I'm just eating all the food, just enjoying market day. It's still fun, but still not as much, in my opinion, as running it. But yeah. How about you, Mr. Young? If you were telling everyone that you were suddenly leaving, what would be your fondest memory as a teacher here?
Okay, so like I haven't had that much time as a teacher here, considering that I only joined last year and then most of it's actually been online. But it kind of feels like a plug. But KC Tech School for STEM, that was probably my highlight. Sorry.
Yep, go on.
But basically, it was really cool just to see so many students that were like just going around to every single room, actually getting stuck into something and not having like a point where students were like, oh, I'm just tired, don't really want to do this, but everyone was super engaged, wanted to do everything. There was like even a point where we just they have like a display right next to the drinking taps. And then like there were some students who were even just like staring at that, engaged with like just the display. So that was pretty fun for me.
That's cool. That's good. How about as students, can you think back of your we'll ask primary school first and then high school, because I don't know how many, like for myself, I've went to 2 different primary schools, but I've only gone to 1 high school for myself. Primary school, I would probably say that I was one of the main characters in the school play, the grade 6 school play, where we did a musical rendition of the story of Ned Kelly, and I was one of the 4 Kelly gang members, so that was pretty fun to have. But because I don't know about you, but in my primary school, I missed out on so much stuff because of the drought that had come in at that time. So every year, grade 6s would have a water fight to celebrate. And then what happened to my year? No, what? So
Uh-huh.
that's something like that. But I guess that's my primary school one that I can think of. How about you, Mrs. Candy?
Primary school, I think, would be similar to yours. We had a school production every year. I never went for any of the main parts, but it was just so much fun getting dressed up and performing, and like, we'd get to sit up high at the Frankston Arts Centre. So all the parents would be down below, we'd be up high. You could just watch it all and, mess around with your friends, and that was always fun.
Yeah. Oh, Mr. Yule?
So I went to only one primary school. That was the primary school for my high school I went to, so still Corporal Grammar.
Yeah.
But we went on one camp to Yarra Junction, and I think it was during when I was in primary school. But basically what happened was we typically sleep in cabins whilst we're on that camp, but this one night they decided to take us out and we had to like hike to a camping ground nearby. And so we were in like quite rather rural areas, and then we just ended up hiking where like there were like a circle of trees and it was just open space in the middle. And so like when we looked up, like you could see every single star in the sky, like brighter than you'd ever imagine. But the fun thing was we all had our torches, and then we kind of did that thing because it was so cold that you'd like breathe air out and it'll be like a bit steamy, and then like you just hold your torch and pretend you have a lightsaber, and we just kept on doing that for the whole night. That would probably be my fondest memory.
Oh, that's fun. Definitely sounds like a primary school thing. High school wise, I want you two to think of one as well, because I think for my high school, I actually share this to kids all the time in my classes. I actually hated high school. Like I felt like for me, primary school, I had like quite a lot of friends and everything, and then suddenly I go to high school, and then a lot of my friends went to different schools, and then suddenly the whole social status changes. But I think that's also one of the reasons why I also wanted to be like a high school teacher, is to make sure that kids don't have such a negative experience like I did. But I think for myself, I'm really thankful that I joined the music program in my high school, because there I actually found some friends. And our year 10 or year 9, year 10, yes, year 10 camp, we got to go to Sydney, and that was definitely one of the most memorable experiences, because I hadn't been to Sydney before, and going with, you can imagine going with friends, going interstate, that's a pretty big thing. And then the teachers gave us so much freedom as well. It's kind of almost like city experience. It's like, okay, you're going to meet us here for meals or whatever, but all this time in between, feel free to just explore. And so we were just like, it was so good because we're visiting another state, tried so many different things, new things. So that's my fondest memory of high school. How about either one of you?
When I think it was year 11 is when it's done. We went on the Central Oz trip.
Oh, so good.
I know, yeah, a lot of schools do it. It is incredible. At first, I wasn't sure if I wanted to do it, because I was like, oh, like it's a long time and this and that. But my friend was really keen, so I was like, okay, I have to go. But yeah, it was the best thing ever. Like, there are days where there's, a lot of traveling, but it's just worth it for the different sights and experiences. Like even Uluru, like I know some people some people really love it, some people aren't fussed, but we did the base walk.
Yeah.
And even that, like, you don't understand how big it is until you're there. Like the rock is massive, and doing the base walk, you actually get to see some sacred sites, and you can't take photos of it. So it's really special to be able to be there and see it in person. So I think, that's hands down favorite memory.
That's really good.
For me, it's kind of like a very long moment, mainly because it was just when I joined my music program at my school. So I ended up being in around 4 or 5 different bands or orchestras. And so like that gave us a lot of opportunities to go out and actually perform and compete with other schools as well. And then just seeing like there were actually so many people, kind of like what Mr. Lam was saying, where there's like kind of a whole like, you can get like high school can kind of get a bit cliquey at times. Like just to find out that there were like a lot of people that were kind of like me and my friends who were extremely into music, just to like go out and actually be able to see that and see what they could do. That was pretty fun for me.
Cool. All right. So yeah, now just thinking as well with Miss Candy, with you, leaving to a primary school now. How long has it actually been that you've been teaching now at Cranberry Secondary College? Yeah.
This is my 4th year.
Fourth year, yeah. And so 4th year, and then now you're moving on to the primary schools. Can you do you think you want to stay with the 1s and 2s, or do you think you want to try some of the other year levels as well? What are you thinking?
I don't know. On my placement, I was lucky to have grade 1s and then grade 6s. And so I've always wanted to teach grade 1s. So I'm actually really lucky with this.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like the idea of preps, but they terrify me.
Yes.
They're just so little. I'm like, it's their first year of school.
Yeah.
I think it'd be interesting to jump back into grade 5, 6 though, just because I have taught year 7 to see what that's like as well.
True.
But otherwise, I've heard 3, 4 is good because you've got a bit of a balance there where they're still young and cute, but you know, can have more of a conversation.
True that. Would you imagine yourself ever as a primary school teacher, Mr. Yong?
At the start of my whole, when I started actually studying how to be a teacher for my master's, I could not see myself doing any primary school because I was kind of like, well, I learned how to, I spent 4 years in my science degree, kind of want to use that and be able to discuss that in a complex manner. But then now that I'm actually teaching, I feel like primary school would probably be pretty fun at some point.
Yeah.
So yeah. I love science at that age.
It sounds really fun. And then just seeing their faces when you do the smallest scientific experiment and they just light up, that would be amazing.
Yeah, I think for myself, I actually got to do something similar because before I became a high school teacher, I used to work at a play center. And so at this play center, there was this giant indoor playground, there was this cafe section for parents. But the thing that made this play center so unique was that it had 3 separate rooms for parties. One was a baking workshop room, one was an art workshop room, and one was the science workshop room. And so, when I got hired, I, put in my resume that I was studying science and studying to be a science teacher. So they were like, oh, perfect. You can come over here, do some experiments. And, had to change it for the kids. For me, I found that the volcano one was always the best one. So Miss Candy, when you go to the primary school, you can always just grab some bicarb soda, add a little bit of vinegar and just watch the kids' faces light up. I think that's a really popular one that I've seen. I don't think it's something that I can do, honestly speaking, long term, because I just don't know how to, if it comes to having to discipline students when they're that young, I don't know if I can. So I don't know, if they start crying, I'm just like, oh, stop crying. I don't know what to say to you. Yeah.
Yeah, I think when they're so little, it's you got to be firm, but you got to be really nice still because they're going to cry so easily.
Yeah, I don't know if I can find that balance. I can see you doing it, Mrs. Candy, but I don't know if I can. How about you, Mr. Yong? Could you imagine yourself doing that balance of firm yet strict?
I think I'm already struggling at this at high school, so.
Yeah.
So back in primary school, it would just be I'm so sorry, but you've done the wrong thing.
Exactly. So yeah, now I was just thinking as well, comparing high school and primary school, I think some students have quite different experiences because some students who come from next door, I can imagine a lot of their friends probably came up with them. I was thinking if we have any advice to give to our listeners, in terms of you going to a new school, what would you give? Especially when there's a place that you're going to where you don't know that many people. It's almost like Mrs. Candy going to change a new school as a teacher, but same thing. But imagine if we have a listener who's brand new to a school, especially it's remote learning right now as well, what advice would you give? Because I would have loved to have some advice going from primary school into high school or changing schools even. Yeah. What are ways that you think that you can ask someone to try to integrate themselves more into the school or get to know more people?
Well, I think Mr. Leung, you've already found out what my technique was when I first joined.
Yep.
Which was literally just feed them. Feed them all.
Yep.
No, but in general, my tip would probably be just go out and do everything you can. I feel when we go into a new school, it's kind of tempting to just go, okay, going to try and not make myself known and like stay under the radar in some points. But I feel like doing everything is better because you can actually find people who click with you in what you enjoy. So that lets you actually find who you actually enjoy hanging out with more, if that makes sense.
Definitely.
Yeah. I would say the same thing, because you don't want to, like, it's a good way to make friends by getting involved in different things, but you don't want to miss out on opportunities either. So give things a go, but also be yourself. Like, if you are interested in something, then go with that, because you'll find other people who share the same interests. You know, I know sometimes we get hung up on how people see us, but, you know, at the end of the day, no one really cares. So just be you and do what you want.
Yeah, definitely. I think for myself, one of the things that I wish that I would have done is definitely like what you said, Mr. Young, as well, about joining or feeding people. I think that would have been a good start. But these days, we don't know if you actually can. If you ask them, do you have any dietary requirements first? Like, I feel like dietary requirements back then wasn't such a big thing, was it? Like growing up for the both of you, do you remember a lot of your like other classmates having dietary requirements and stuff like that? I don't know. I just feel like something that's changed over time. Like,
I never thought about it because like it'd be my birthday and I'll bring in my own birthday cake at primary school and be like, let's celebrate my birthday.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, someone could be completely lactose intolerant and I'm like, well, this is the cake.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know a lot of primary schools now have like a no nuts policy, but I don't remember that as a kid. So I'm like, I don't know if that was a new thing or what.
Yeah, I agree. Same thing. When I was working at the play center, there was definitely the no nuts policy as well. But I think maybe it's showing my age. I don't know. But back when I had school, I think both primary and high school, we never really had any sort of people with major allergies that we knew about or that we had to be aware of in the class, honestly speaking. Yeah. Cool. All right. So that brings us to a time where it is now time for us to share a show. So in passing, last time we talked a lot about different anime shows and so on with Mrs. Candy. And this time, did either you have any recommendations that you wanted to give?
In terms of anime or
could be anything. Show? Still could be anything.
Let's see.
I think I'll start first to give you some time. I think one of the shows that I've been really wanting to watch, but I haven't had the time to watch, it's not anime, but it's animated, I know we mentioned it last time, but it's the What If Marvel series. I'm hearing more and more things about it and about the art and the stories that come out of it. So I think it's really interesting because now that the new Spider-Man's trailer is out, I'm actually getting back into Marvel season again. So I really can't wait. So I think it's a good show to probably watch in between. Yeah. Mr. Yong?
Okay. So I haven't watched it yet, but I do want to watch it. It's been recommended to me by a friend. So it's on Netflix, I believe. And it's the Bruce Lee documentary.
Oh, there's a Bruce Lee documentary, is there? Oh.
So I think from what they've explained to me, basically the whole documentary is about kind of finding your own identity. So kind of ties into the whole, like, if you went to a new school, what would you do? But basically, from what was explained to me, it was basically Bruce Lee saying how when he found his own identity and then he had the freedom to express his own identity, then he was starting to become himself and like flourish in every aspect that he had. So kind of want to watch it. It feels like it'll be like a really big feel-good type of documentary. But yeah, that's my recommendation for now.
Is it? I'm just looking at Netflix now to see. It might be The Legend of Bruce Lee. That's the only thing that's come up when I Googled Bruce Lee Netflix documentary.
It might be like Be Water.
Oh, it could be that one. Be Water. Yeah, that looks like it. Mrs. Candy?
TV show wise, definitely What If. I've only just started it, but yes, it's good. Loki has been really good as well.
Nice.
I've got to catch up with those other TV shows, that way I can just continue watching the movies. But otherwise, my like lockdown I don't know, goal, hobby has been to watch all the Brendan Fraser movies.
Ah, so good. So good.
So a classic of his that everyone has to watch is, of course, The Mummy.
Yes, 100%.
Yes.
Yeah,
So that's
yeah,
my go-to. Everyone has to watch that.
perfect. I feel like that's usually on TV a lot of times anyway, so you can find it quite often, listeners. So with our episode now closing, Mrs. Candy, do you have any final words that you want to say to the listeners or to the students of Cranbourne East Secondary before you part ways with us?
Oh gosh, I guess just that. I'll miss you all, and just remember to keep looking for new opportunities and have a go.
Definitely. Well, thank you for joining us today, Mrs. Candy. You definitely will be missed very much. Hopefully we get to catch up with you as well sometime, and that this is not just a goodbye, but it's a see you later. Cool. All right. So now we'll say goodbye to everyone and see you all around. See you. Bye.
See ya. Bye-bye.